What they generally do is create an image of America that they want to see, and it doesn't actually represent America. Like if you look at the ABC Washington Post Ipsos poll, the one that had that headline, worst polling in 100 years or whatever, they had Trump underwater 6 points on the issue of immigration. That's just crazy world.
This next man, who's an expert, I just pretend to be one here in polling, and I make the references available so you can become an expert. But this guy actually, this is what he lives, eats, breathes, and he's one of the best. It's time to bring on from Rasmussen Reports, Mark Mitchell. For those who want to follow him, it's Honest Pollster on X. He's the head pollster for Rasmussen Reports. And, he's also on Rumble Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 9 p.m. Eastern. Mr. Mitchell, how are you, sir?
Yeah, doing great, man. When there's an information op on, I'm at my best. I'm on the front lines of the information war right now.
Yeah, well, you know what? And what you do here, you really are a specialist. So in these cases, you're incredibly valuable because you and I both know that, and I don't believe there are lies, damn lies, in statistics. Statistics obviously matter, data matters, but you certainly can manipulate it, especially if the sampling of the polls out there are not robust. So please grace us with your speciality. Is this true? Is Donald Trump at the lowest approval rating of any modern president?
Maybe, but probably not. And my numbers, no. That's the problem with statistics is there's noise too. And you have this whole information gatekeeping layer that will cherry pick numbers to get whatever they want. And they also have many, many ways to lie. I did a whole hour-and-a-half video on all of the ways a scummy pollster could lie to you. I will say that Donald Trump's approval rating is not high, but I think that has more to do with the fact that we're probably on the cusp of a civil war and a lot less to do. This is just not the George W. Bush America where 80% have a high approval rating of the president. We're just never going to see that again. So Trump came in the mid 50s, which was pretty good. That's a honeymoon. And now he's back underwater 4 points. He's at 47% today. I think he's going to drift around 49, 50%. And that's where you'd expect in a really highly divisive country, but it's not. I mean, it's not this sudden thing. What they're trying to do is convince you that all of a sudden he poked the economic bear and now he's plunging and circling the toilet drain. And that's just not the case. If you strip out the first 6 months of Obama 2009, Donald Trump pretty much polls in our numbers exactly like Obama. Right. And that's what you'd expect. You know, he came in, won a majority. He's in the office. A lot of people. Now, the big discrepancy is how much ubiquitously positive media coverage Obama got and how ubiquitously horrible the coverage of Trump has been.
Right.
But the standout in our numbers is Biden. And he just sucks compared to both of them. He's about 4 or 5 points worse. And nobody was talking about approval under Biden.
Right. Well, that's what I was going to ask you. This doesn't exist in a vacuum. So Barack Obama, people say, well, why would you take out the first 6 months? Let's be honest, because it was first black president. And people were like, all right, we'll give him a shot. Then we said socialist. And they said, you mean N-word? We're like, no. But with Biden,
well, they thought he was going to heal the economy with a magic wand, too. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And he ran right away to racial division. With Biden, this doesn't exist in a vacuum. So you are saying definitively that Biden's approval rating and they were worse than Donald Trump.
Oh, 100%. We poll presidential approval every day for the last 20 years. We're the only person that still does it daily. And so we have an uninterrupted stream of data. We don't change the methodology. President gets swapped out. We keep polling the same question. And it just hasn't, seen the same dump that everybody shows in Donald Trump. You look at Real Clear Politics, and Donald Trump has about a 4 or 5 point sandbag compared to our numbers. And yeah, Biden has spent most of his presidency between 40 and about 44%. He left office at 42, 43%. Trump's at 47 right now. I think he's going to be back up to 50. So it's just completely different.
And of course, like you said, the positive coverage of Biden was pretty much ubiquitous as opposed to the negative coverage of Donald Trump. I'm kind of amazed that any Republican ever wins. Basically, if the media were balanced, a Democrat would never win ever. That's what I've learned in these last election cycles, not to mention the actual interference that we've seen. Let me ask you this, because this is an audience question, actually. This comes from Baby Eating Biden. And I think we've talked about this. That's their screen name, sorry. I didn't write it.
It's not that it was Biden eating baby.
Yeah, exactly. They took it a little too literal, like, I just want to bite its toes. He's like, I really want to bite its toes. Oh, cook it up, fry it, smell it. So how does your sampling differ from other pollsters? Because like you said, you've been doing it longer. You've been significantly more accurate in recent election cycles. What's different?
Actually, a lot less than the other people. That's one of the problems with polling is the data is just getting worse and worse. People aren't picking up the phones. There aren't as many landlines. And so everybody's been piling into these panels like Ipsos or YouGov, and they suck. They're like run by leftist corporations and community managers with pronouns in their bios. They only have 50 or 60,000 people. And what they generally do is create an image of America that they want to see, and it doesn't actually represent America. Like if you look at the ABC Washington Post Ipsos poll, the one that had that headline, worst polling in 100 years or whatever, they had Trump underwater 6 points on the issue of immigration. That's just crazy world. So those people aren't America. Half of our polling is still random landline robodial polling. There's a lot of old people in America and a lot of old people voters. So we still get a lot of them. And then we are very careful about getting what we think is high quality online panel data. So that's people that are paid money to take polling. We reach hundreds of thousands of those people. And so we've changed less than most. And so I think that's one of the reasons we're still good. They're getting a whole bunch of like non-political normies, people from Nigeria with VPNs, and we're still getting a lot of real Americans. And that's why I think our numbers are better.
Can I ask you, is that by design, do you think, or is that just laziness? Like how usually things progress as far as, any industry becoming better, more efficient, you fine tune. How are they getting worse? Laziness or design to try and, use bias as a political cudgel?
Well, I mean, there are good pollsters. There are good pollsters that suck, honest pollsters that suck. There are dishonest pollsters. There are pollsters who are honest, but their boss is dishonest. There are pollsters that are honest, and the media reports on them in a very dishonest way. And so it's a complete mess. But here's how you know that there's something nefarious going on. When was, in my opinion, the peak response bias, the peak amount of lefties that were super mad right now was about 3 weeks ago when the market started to take a hit, right?
Right.
But what you see now is that the polling's bad. And it happened over the weekend. All of a sudden, everybody just dropped a ton of bad polling. And it's all the corporate ones. It's all people tied to big corporations. CNN, Fox News, ABC Washington Post, ABC's Disney owned. Like it's just, the Murdochs are in there. And those are the ones, and they all did it in one day. And a lot of these people haven't even been polling over the last couple of months and weeks. They said, you know what, I'm just going to save up this little turd for Trump's 100 days. And they dropped it right into the Sunday news cycle. And then what you also see is if you look at the Google search trend or organic search volume for the word Trump approval, he's been on the political stage for like 10 years now. Well, guess what? April of 2025 is going to be the second highest month of search traffic for the term Trump approval. And why is that? Well, it's because Axios is giving people push notifications on their phone. They're hearing it on the radio. They're hearing it everywhere. And they're like, let me check on that. It doesn't seem right. He's not doing that bad.
Right.
Our right direction polling is setting records. Wow. We just had 13 consecutive weeks of 42% or higher. Our previous record was 7 weeks. That was also under Trump. And so ultimately what I'll say is like Trump approval doesn't even matter. People think the country's headed in the right direction, except for like, the 12% of Americans who have a stock portfolio. But like, screw you guys.
Well, even, by the way, even in some of those polls, when we dug a little deeper, they still trust Republicans by a 7-point spread over Democrats. So again, this doesn't exist in a vacuum. It just says that people, what I saw, again, as a layman, is all-time low as far as trust in institutions and even lower for Democrats. Is that fair?
Trump is actually kind of like well viewed positively in many measures. His approval index, which is like strong approve minus strong disapprove. So that's you take all the lovers and subtract the haters. His numbers are routinely higher than Obama's were throughout both of his terms. And then also, if you look at just the percentage of the eligible voting population that Trump got to turn out for his second time, his second win, we'll just say, right?
Right.
Way higher than the first time. He only got 28% of the electorate in term one. He got 32% this time, which was higher than Obama 2, higher than JFK, higher than Reagan 1, higher than Bush 1 and 2, higher than both Clinton terms. Like he convinced a lot of Americans to vote for him, like more than pretty much everybody except like Reagan 2, FDR number 3, Obama 1, but not Obama 2, right? Because of that whole 6-month period, right, where we were hugging out all of our racial animosity.
Yeah, till it came roaring back with Trayvon Martin and Michael Brown. Toss it. Let me ask you this. Do you guys have a pretty firm grasp on what's happening with Generation Z? Because that is an anomaly where they're more conservative than any generation at that point in their life. And it seems like a lot of pollsters out there are scrambling, going, this happened really fast.
Yes, it is. I'm watching it very closely. The numbers are kind of all over. I will say that young men are more conservative than the young women. But in general, the 18 to 39-year-old age bracket in our polling consistently has now been the most Trump approving. The most country is on the right direction. I'll say it was bigger in February and March. We actually had a 60% Trump approval rating among 18 to 39-year-olds. And I think they were over 50% right direction at one point. So that's just astounding. So it's completely flipped where 10 years ago you'd say, oh, the boomers, they're the conservative ones. They're all watching Fox News. And maybe the Fox News ones died out. I don't know. And all we're left is with the MSNBC boomers. But they don't like Trump. They're the ones that are the most left right now. And I guess it's because maybe they're invested in the system. They don't really understand the extent to which Trump is trying to undermine the neo-global economic order.
Yeah.
But the 18 to 39, we had 59% of them thinking that Donald Trump's second term was going to bring in a new golden age. If that's not, and these were people back in November, they were going in Trump's direction, but they still didn't go for Trump in our polling. They were still Harris by a few points. And now all of a sudden, 59% of them are like, oh, golden age. Now it's abating a little bit, but they're still the most conservative ones. And I think it's because they want this chaos. They rate Doge very highly. A lot of stuff was being uncovered.
Yeah.
They can't form families and buy houses. And I think they're probably trying to look for a boogeyman. And it's like, well, it's the federal government. It's the United States federal oligarchy. And I feel like that has kind of taken a back burner now. You know what I mean? We're talking more about, the tariffs are sucking up a lot of oxygen.
Right.
But it feels like Elon's been backburnered. It feels like maybe the goalposts have been shifted a little bit. And I'm here for what we were seeing in January and February. I like the idea of shuttering these offices and pulling the string on where all these dollars go to all the different offshore bank accounts. But who knows? Maybe we'll get more of that.
Yeah, and just to be clear, when you talk about in the November election, if you do split up Generation Z between men and women, the young men did go for Trump, I believe, like an actual net positive. Mm-hmm. And overall as a demo, it ended up being a couple points for Harris, but that's because the young female vote counterbalanced the male more significantly. Do I have that right?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, and that's another thing, too. Like, there is a big gender divide where young people are not getting married. Men are checking out of the dating pool because feminism, their view, has ruined dating prospects. And then, young feminists are the only group who can create a social movement around banning catcalling and then bitch about the fact that no men are hitting on them anymore. So I think young men are like, we stopped catcalling and we don't care. You want dudes in your sports? You do your thing.
There's a lot going on, and it's really hard to slice up the demos into usable signals and without doing massive mega polls, right? So what might be going on in the cultural zeitgeist is happening among 18 to 25-year-old men, but we're polling 18 to 39-year-old men and women, and those people have parents mixed in, so there's a lot going on. In our polling, the 29 to 39 age group is really the most conservative, and it's because they're trying to, although the 18 to 29-year-olds are still way more conservative than they've ever been. These are people that went for Hillary Clinton, 40 or 50 points, so it's just a complete reversal. But then there's other things, too. In our polling, the women were about 20 points less conservative than the men. But when we added in pet ownership and the real crazy ones are the single women cat owners, and they went Kamala Harris in our polling by almost 40 points. So there's funny little signals in there.
That's not funny. That's entirely expected. Let's be honest.
Yeah, well, I know, but we proved it, right?
Yeah, I know.
It's not just a trope.
I know, and I can think of fewer people who add net value to the United States fabric who add less than 40-year-old single cat ladies who bitch about men. I don't know if you saw this, but you were a dead ringer for if Tucker Carlson and Joel Edgerton had a baby. We put this. I don't know if he can see it, but we put it up. We'll send it to you. It's not a bad thing.
He can see it.
You got a Hollywood A-lister, and then Tucker, who has lived a very privileged life, so his skin still glows. So we'll send it to you.
I'm an honest pollster, so I don't have a very privileged life. I'll say that.
No, you got to have your nose to the grindstone. I bet you don't have this data in front of you, but I was just talking about this. First off, most single male cat owners are gay. Not all of them, but most. I would imagine that if you have a single male cat owner, the chances of him voting Democrat are somewhere in the 70-something% range. I don't know if you have, but if there's a way for you, I bet you.
He's looking for a tab.
He's looking to dial it in.
Well, I would have it right away, but I changed computers a few months ago, and so I don't have it up. But I did the math. We have a video on YouTube back in September where we went through all this stuff, and it was hilarious because the pets really described a lot, like more than income or education. And what was weird is it was like the female dog owners, female married dog owners were like 15-point Trump voters.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So it was like completely, and you're like, oh, that makes sense. Well, it's like in the numbers.
Yeah. Well, it makes sense because if you think about it, a dog is an ally. A dog is a friend. A dog requires, it's dependent on you. So there's that mothering, nurturing, like you're taking that on. Whereas a lot of people are like, I love my cat. My cat does its own thing and it scratches me when it gets pissed off. It's like, well, that's not a mothering relationship. That's having a wild animal. I would bet you that people with helper monkeys, Democrats, because so many people who are disabled now are just fat bitches.
It's kind of like the Ebenezer Scrooge thing too, Stephen, how you say the people that rely on the government to feed the poor and to house the mentally insane. It's kind of like, oh yeah, I'll let the cat do its own thing. And dog people are like, I'll take care of my dog.
Yeah.
I do it myself.
Exactly. Yeah, you put the cat in the prison at the poorhouse. That also makes sense why they really ran on remember Vance said like crazy cat ladies, that they really made that a point in this last election.
It's a thing. Here I actually found the spreadsheet.
Okay. All right. I'm here for it.
Okay. Unmarried cat women, 36% Harris.
Whoa.
Married women with dogs, 17% Trump. Now, I think a lot of that might be maybe they have cats too, but they answer dog.
Yeah.
Right. And so married men with cats, 4% Trump. Unmarried men with cats, 1 point Harris. So
I told you.
It's better than I thought.
Yeah, I knew it. There's a single man with a cat. That's a red flag. And I hate that term is overused. It's just not a very, and I'm sorry, I'm not saying that all cat people, I'm saying if you only have a cat and you're single, and it's just like, it's just weird. Yeah. Like, I feel like dog people and non-dog people have more in common than cat people and everyone else.
They're all on Blue Sky.
Yes. Exactly.
First thing you're going to see is cat photos.
Yeah,
cat photos and picture of people pegging each other.
And then a rep from Michigan taking a picture with them. Happy LGBTQ day with my furries.
Yeah, there's a really interesting crosstab on pegging, apparently.
Yes.
Mark's been
It's not all that interesting. It's exactly what you would expect.
Yeah, exactly. Harris by 70.
Funny you joked about, but the not sure result would be really high.
It's true. We did have some furries on this show who were like, these people don't represent us, see? And we're like, okay, all right, calm down.
Oh my gosh.
Let me ask you, we do have some questions from the audience, and especially when we have someone with your level of expertise. And this comes from Laser Shot. And he said, or she, I don't know. When you take statistics, you learn that data is manipulated to say anything you want it to. Why should any of us care about poll data at all ever again? And by the way, I think they're throwing the baby out with the bathwater, but you did just lay out a case as to when you talked about Axios sending out these push notifications. So not only does it include basically leading polling data, but then an entire mechanism in place to get more people to sort of be, have their mind subverted that way. Like it's pretty detailed and it's pretty scary. Why should people just throw it all out? Or how does someone, the layman, know which polls they determine to be valuable?
Well, we're kind of in a brave new world here. And I would start by framing that, saying that we're in World War III right now. And it is a hot information war. Mm-hmm. And right now, the establishment oligarchy is locked in deathly battle with the Trump administration. And I don't know who's going to win. But there's so much money and power at play that they're going to use every tool in their book to try and maintain power. And right now, the only thing they kind of have is just to try and lie to everybody and try and convince that all of a sudden, after 10 years, Donald Trump's not cool. You have to vote for the cool person. Like that's literally, it's like the Mean Girls playbook is what they're trying to do right now because they don't have anything else. If you look at their politicians, they're not being super effective. Chuck Schumer comes out and does something. His own base rips him apart. He gets ratioed on Twitter. And so they've all kind of like gone back into hiding. And so there will always be election predictions because there's so much power hinging on it. And the polling, the data sources have changed and maybe they'll change again in the future. Maybe I'll be polling artificial intelligence. I have no idea.
Probably.
But it's like, as long as there are these tools, they are going to be perverted until we get to a new golden age of America or something, right? And so you should not trust any of the headlines you see. And what I try and put out isn't actually predictions, it's data.
Right.
And I'm trying to put out the best data possible. At the end of the day, you're going to have to trust me, which is where we're at with, I think, everybody, right? Like, there's no trust in any institution right now. You look at the churches, the corporations, academia, every single elected official. You can't trust any of them. And so we're in this kind of authenticity economy. And that's one of the reasons that, like, listen, polling is commoditized and honest polling is not. And if it was, Rasmussen reports would not be in business. So,
well, that was one. That's a good answer. I laid out a 3-point plan because, Jordan Peterson was on Joe Rogan, and this term, the woke right, and it's kind of tossed around, but I think it's used, unfortunately, as identity politics and a shield. But there was something true in what he said, that it's important to identify charlatans because there are a lot of Johnny-come-latelys, on the right. And I would imagine the same thing applies to polling. I said, look, how do you identify this? This doesn't guarantee that all of them will meet these sort of metrics. But I said some litmus tests here. Number one is transparency. Do they let you know, like for us, we make our references publicly available, or do people make their methodology not only available, but something that people can generally understand, I would imagine. Number two, track record. If someone was a liberal all the way up until 2016 and became a conservative, you're like, okay, why? What changed, right? Someone with a longer track, people can have changes of heart, but someone with a longer track record who is transparent is someone you should be more likely to give the benefit of the doubt. And then finally, number three, the prophet. To whom are they beholden at that point? You just laid out a lot of these polls. They're not transparent whatsoever. They don't have a track record. Some of them have only existed for a few years. And certainly when you look at the mergers, and who are they beholden to? One of the 5 giant corporations. You could immediately negate quite a few of them or eliminate them from your trustworthy list, and you pass all of those tests. Yeah.
Well, I'll disagree with you on one, and that's transparency. I think transparency is used as a cudgel by the information gatekeeping industry in order to, listen, 538 used transparency to throw us out. At the end of the day, I can give you all of my data and still lie to you. I could have deleted data points. I could have selectively used some sources versus others. I could have done anything. And so I've talked to people who've actually checked, and the 538 transparency score was actually like anti-correlated with accuracy. And they actually added it as a way to boost the mainstream media pollsters. So it's like, New York Times, they'll hide behind this veil of transparency, and it's absolutely meaningless. But I tell you what my methodology is. Like, I put how I weighted it out. But at the end of the day, you're basically counting on my trust that I didn't delete data points or spike questions for results I didn't like. And that's what they do like all the freaking time. It's really, really so corrupt, and the amount of stuff. I mean, just like even like 6 points underwater on immigration in the ABC poll.
Yeah, I know.
Run a headline. Worst polling in 80 years. Like, it's so fake.
It defies. Yeah, I think that one would apply more to content creators because if I say, hey, by the way, the United States spends 3.4% of their GDP on military spending. Here's the reference. Whereas a lot of people will just say things and commentators and they never correct them. Like the example I always go back to is, and you see this on the right, George Floyd. Right? You still have people walking around who think that George Floyd pistol whipped a pregnant woman. That didn't happen. George Floyd did commit an armed robbery against a woman while her toddler was in the house. That truth is enough. But I've seen conservatives go out, because there are some commentators who knew it was dishonest but wanted to sensationalize anyway. I actually provided the crime report, and I've seen liberals go, see, fake news, you're full of crap. So you do see it's hard sometimes for the truth to compete with the lie. And to draw a parallel would be, let's say you, in your accuracy in polling, go, actually, he's pretty on par with a lot of other presidents, better than Biden. Well, someone may not click that if some new polling agency comes out and goes, actually, Donald Trump has highest approval rating of any president ever, right? Because that's sexier, but it's not true. And we do have a rash of that, both on the left and the right. The left has done it as legacy media, but you do see that springing up. So I think it's something we probably have to be aware of.
100%. Like I deal with that every single day. I mean, it's at the end of the day, it's a whole lot of boring numbers, and it's not for everybody to engage. We stream a long time. We have big discussions about what's going on. The idea is to interpret the data. It's not for everybody, but I think it helps enough people see through those clickbait kind of headlines that they can provide this context because they're into numbers and polling. But I mean, that's what they do. Like, it literally is. I mean, The Hill did this article. There was this Fairleigh Dickinson poll where they asked Trump versus Harris, and Trump lost by 1 point. And then they asked a whole bunch of questions like, oh, how important is race? Oh, do you think that there's gender discrimination? Like all these questions. And then they asked the Trump-Harris matchup again, and they got Harris +7 in the same poll.
Wow.
The Hill headline was Harris +7.
Right. Of course it is. Yeah.
And, it's you couldn't even really tell in the article. Like it was like 5 paragraphs down.
Yeah.
And it just happens on a daily basis.
It's like asking the jury, be like, now, you don't need to tell me your vote if you're going to vote guilt or rule guilty or not guilty, but first allow me to perhaps present to you that he's guilty. And it's like, yeah, look, all of them said guilty. Yeah. And that was the only information they had at that point in time. Which, speaking of which, clickbait, remember the Epstein thing where it's like, new exclusive Epstein, and there were some people that took pictures with binders. I wanted to, because Pam Bondi has been remarkably unpopular with my viewers, and I never even really covered her confirmation because I was just cautious. I won't even say cautiously optimistic. I wanted to see with your polling, and this comes actually from a question from the audience, Carful, have you seen any cabinet approval sort of outliers, people who are doing really well or people who are doing really poorly?
No. They're all just kind of in this sort of fluff. I mean, people know that Epstein didn't kill himself by like 20 points, like a month after it happened. So, like, people are really smart about anything like sort of street smarts or seeing through BS headlines. A lot of them saw through the COVID stuff. A lot of them saw through all the censorship and all the illegal Biden things. They wanted to impeach Biden by 50% in like February of 2022. Mm-hmm. Republicans obviously couldn't get it done. But I mean, with the problem is with the people, they just don't know. So we asked Pam Bondi favorability, and she was like 43% favorable, 33 or something like that unfavorable. So she was net +10, which is high. Yeah. But that means a lot less when you get a 24% not sure number. And then you look at Republicans, and it like Twitter does not accurately reflect your average normie Republican. Sure. Your average normie Republican is mostly MAGA, 75% of them like Trump, 55% of them really like Trump. For her, she only had an 8% strong disapprove among Republicans. So it's just not like those kind of things aren't breaking through. And you got to understand, like, compare her to Sessions. Right. And it's like, I know. And again, my feedback to the Trump administration is you guys were doing awesome in January, February, flood in the zone, uncovering things. I say this a lot, but I feel like in March, what I felt looking back, I never could have predicted how much we would see. And I felt like we would never see the toothpaste go back in the tube. And now I wonder, like, is that the Republican plan? Is it to try and just hunker down for the rest of Trump and then hope that they can run another Romney and go back to the way things were before? But, I don't think that's, allow me to present what I think may partially be going on. I mean, I said at some point, there's probably going to be another Donald Trump, Elon Musk breakup to some degree. I remember saying that before this administration. And if you notice that Elon Musk and a lot of the big tech people who all of a sudden, right, are somewhat cozy with Donald Trump, Amazon right now with a little sticker on their website notwithstanding, they've really pivoted and focused on AI. And they really do want, we know that it would likely be the end of a lot of content if AI had the ability to scrape, assimilate, disseminate content and profit off of it. And I think that there are some disagreements there behind the scenes quite a bit where I think that maybe they're going, okay, these people need to have their authority in their departments, and maybe Elon is floundering a little bit, and his focus seems to be right now on pushing some of this AI legislation. So they might be at a bit of a standstill there. Also, the numbers didn't come to fruition. Like, these were projections, right? But when you look at the real cuts, you're like, okay, this isn't what we thought. I know it takes time. It might just be harder to move those. There are some that should be gimmies. For example, the Epstein list. There are some that should be gimmies. Like, certain people should be, as far as I'm concerned, hauled out in cuffs at the FBI and intelligence agencies. That's what I want to see. Yeah, that's I'm going to gauge success. I think you're right about Elon. I feel like something maybe happened behind the scenes right around the time that the CR was signed. Almost like the Republicans did their deal and Trump was like, well, okay, we're going to run with it. That's our win. And now we just need to like put Doge on the back burner or something. Maybe something like that happened. I don't know. But it just feels like Trump came in at DEFCON 1. Yeah. And some of his cabinet members came in at DEFCON 2 or 3, and Congress is at DEFCON 4 right now. It's like peacetime for Congress. And that's not where Americans are at. Only 30% of them trust the federal government. 72% of them think they're living in a police state. Vast majorities of them think the prior president was profiting from our own enemies. 50% think that China is an enemy, and yet they're our biggest trading partner, and our entire economy is built. Yeah. Like, I could just go on and on.
50% think they're our biggest enemy, but don't put a tariff on them. Ah!
Yeah, right, exactly. Dude, China is 2-to-1 a bigger enemy than Russia. And it's like every single elected official is going to put that Ukraine flag on their suit. They're just completely out of touch. And it's because we know, like, DC is occupied territory. That's what it is.
Well, I think maybe that's also when you just struck a nerve. And again, I think we've really supported Elon, where he's done some great work. But he was, the only person who was allowed to go in unburdened by the CCP with Tesla, in communist China, and has some ties there. And I do think this is no small deal. Remember when him and Vivek came out talking about uncapping H-1Bs for the president who ran on immigration?
Yeah, I remember that.
That was the closest to compromising this president's legacy anyone in his cabinet has come, I think. And I think he probably said, he kind of came out and said, well, we need some of them, but it was like, okay, we need the best and brightest. But then it was, we also need low wage workers. Well, then where are the jobs left? And I think he probably said, pump the brakes a little bit, guys, because they went public with that. And if they'd have pushed it, people would have been increasingly pissed. I still think they want it, but they're kind of keeping it hush-hush.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I worked for Walmart. I've been in their San Bruno engineering building, and I can speak firsthand about the impact of H-1B visas a lot was going on. That was a really wild December. I think everybody was like kind of chilling out after the election. There wasn't a lot of stuff in the headlines. And then that H-1B thing stuck its head above the trenches and just got blasted in the face. I mean, I remember my engagement was off the charts. It's like telling all the stories about Walmart and H-1Bs, but it's like, you can't say, oh, we're going to deport all the illegal aliens to free up jobs. And, oh, by the way, we're going to like take in every single Indian engineer. It's like we're a service economy. Americans don't really want to be picking crops. They want high wage corporate roles that they're being pushed out of. Right. And it's not because in some cases it's because they're cheaper, but in other cases it's because these large corporations have just made cozy deals to say, you know what, we're going all in on Indian engineering. And then once they build the Bangalore hub, then they get the San Bruno hub, and then it's all. And I can tell you how those people hire as well. I'm generalizing, like broad brush. There's a lot of nepotism in the hiring processes there.
Of course, the staffing agencies that skim
problems as well.
Yeah, and the staffing agencies that skim, right? They'll skim a huge percentage. So you have 16 Indian families living in a house. Like, we've covered this at length. Yeah. I don't think we need the best and brightest as stock boys at Walmart. So there's something that is that's a disconnect. Also, if it's like, hey, we're all in an Indian engineering, you'd think one person would look around and go like, oh, okay. Have you seen India? Just to start. No, yeah, it's like it's terrible. I'm sorry. There's nothing. Here's how you know it's not racism. Name me one thing, economically, innovatively, culturally, that we think India does better than us. No one can. So why do we need to bring them here to replace American workers? Guess Mark Mitchell, everybody. Hey, if you like this video, you can comment below. We always appreciate your feedback. Or click one of these, which will be similar as far as rebuttals, claims, truths. Maybe it changed my mind. Or sometimes we talk about the difference between men and women, how dogs are different from cats, airline food. No punchline, just premises, because this is the internet in the 21st damn century.